You won't believe the family secret my husband kept hidden for 30 years. I thought I knew the man I married, his stories, his past, his heart. I was wrong. Before I tell you what I found, let me warn you. Once a truth like this surfaces, it doesn't just change your life, it rewrites it. My name is Laura Stevens, and for 27 years I believed I had the kind of marriage most people envy. My husband, Daniel, was a high school history teacher. Soft-spoken, reliable. The kind of man neighbors trusted with spare keys and holiday lights. We had 2 grown children, a golden retriever, and a home that felt like the picture on a Christmas card. And then, one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, everything changed. I wasn't looking for trouble that day, I was cleaning out old books for a charity drive. When I flipped through one of Daniel's old novels, a photograph slipped out and fell to the floor. It was a faded snapshot, yellowed at the corners, but what it showed froze me. Daniel, 30 years younger, his arm around a woman I didn't recognize, and beside them a little boy with Daniel's same gray-blue eyes. On the back, a date was written in blue ink, September 1995, long before Daniel and I met. At first, I told myself it was nothing, maybe a cousin, a family friend, a student from his teaching days. But there was something too intimate in that woman's hand on his shoulder. Too familiar in the way Daniel was smiling, the same smile he gave me when we danced at our wedding. For days, I carried that photo around like a ghost. I'd wake up at night just to stare at it. The woman, the boy, the truth I didn't want to name. Then one evening I asked Daniel casually, "Hey, who are these people?" He glanced at the photo, barely pausing. "Oh, just old friends," he said, smiling. And then he walked away. Old friends, that was it. But my gut, my instincts, sharpened by 27 years of loving and living with this man, told me that was a lie. That's when I decided. I wasn't going to confront him, not yet. First, I needed to know the truth, all of it. Because sometimes silence isn't peace, it's a disguise. The next morning, I found a voicemail, one that made my hands shake so badly I nearly dropped my phone. It wasn't meant for me, it was from the woman in that photograph. "You won't believe the family secret my husband kept hidden for 30 years, and if the photograph was the first crack in the glass, the voicemail was the hammer that shattered it. I wasn't even looking for it. It found me. That morning, I was cleaning out the kitchen drawer, the one every family has, full of old keys, coupons, and batteries that might still have some life in them. Daniel had left his work phone there before heading to school. It buzzed once, twice, and then went silent. A few minutes later, a voicemail popped up. And that's when everything began to unravel. I glanced at the screen, a name I didn't recognize. Sarah Green. For 27 years of marriage, I thought I knew every name that mattered in Daniel's world. But this one, it didn't fit anywhere. I hesitated, then curiosity, that dangerous cousin of fear, got the better of me. I pressed play. Her voice was calm, warm, domestic. The kind of voice that knows what kind of coffee you drink and what makes you laugh. "Hi, Daniel," she said, "just checking in. Tom's got his art show this weekend. He's really hoping you'll be there. It's at the Maple Street Gallery Sunday at 5. Don't be late this time, okay?" The message ended with a faint click. I replayed it twice, then 3 times. The words blurred, but one name echoed in my head, Tom. The same name written on the back of that photograph I'd found days earlier. The little boy with Daniel's eyes. I wanted to believe it was innocent. Maybe Sarah was a coworker, maybe Tom was her son, maybe Daniel was just a mentor. But something about her tone, that casual familiarity, told me otherwise. That night, Daniel came home at his usual time. He kissed my cheek, asked what was for dinner, and started grading papers at the table like nothing had changed. But I saw it now, the practiced normalcy, the small silences that lived between his words. After dinner, I asked, "You got a call earlier, from someone named Sarah Green?" He didn't look startled, just paused for half a heartbeat before smiling. "Oh," he said, "she's from the community theater. I used to help them with a fundraiser years ago." And that was it. But the voicemail hadn't said anything about a theater. It mentioned Tom's art show. It mentioned Sunday. And it sounded like a promise, one he'd broken before. That night, while Daniel slept beside me, I lay awake replaying that message in my mind. The voice, the name. The way she said, "Don't be late this time." There was history there, not the kind you can find on paper, but the kind that lives in tone and routine. So I opened my laptop and searched. Sarah Green, Maple Street Gallery. It took less than 5 seconds. The first result, Tom Green, local sculptor, exhibiting at Maple Street Gallery this Sunday, 5 p.m. He was 30 years old. Born in 1995, 3 years before Daniel and I got married. That's when I knew the truth wasn't behind me, it was waiting just a few miles away. And I was done pretending not to see it. Next, I would meet the people Daniel kept hidden for 30 years, and I wouldn't be alone. Sunday arrived with the kind of quiet that feels staged, like the world itself knew something was about to break. Daniel left early, saying he needed to meet a colleague about school budgets. I waited 15 minutes, maybe 20, before I grabbed my keys and followed the GPS to Maplewood. The Maple Street Gallery was tucked between a florist and a coffee shop, the kind of small-town charm that made everyone feel familiar. Inside, the air smelled like paint, clay, and polite conversations. I pretended to browse, my eyes scanning every face until I saw him. Tom Green. He was taller than I expected, lean, with a kind smile that lit up the room. He greeted people with ease, confident, warm, completely at home in his space. But what stopped me was the shape of his face. His jawline, his eyes, those eyes, gray-blue, identical to Daniel's. It was like looking at my husband through a time machine. My throat tightened. I wanted to move, but I couldn't. Then, from across the room, I heard it, Daniel's laugh. That low, familiar, comforting sound that had filled my kitchen for 27 years. I turned, and there he was, my husband. Standing beside a woman I recognized instantly, Sarah Green. She was older now, graceful in that easy, quiet way of women who have lived whole lives while the world overlooked them. They stood close, not romantic, but intimate enough to make me feel like an intruder in my own marriage. I watched as Sarah adjusted Daniel's collar lightly, like it was something she'd done 1,000 times before. And Daniel didn't flinch, he smiled, he let her. I stepped behind a display table to steady myself. The world didn't spin, it just slowed, like everything was happening underwater. Then I saw something that sealed it. On the wall beside Tom's main sculpture, a breathtaking piece of iron twisted into the shape of a tree, was a small dedication card. For my father, who taught me that strength can live quietly. The floor might as well have fallen out beneath me. The room blurred, the noise dulled, and all I could hear was my heartbeat in my ears. My husband wasn't just visiting some woman from his past. He was visiting his son. I walked out before anyone could see the tears in my eyes. Outside, the air was cold, but it didn't hurt as much as the truth did. I sat in my car for nearly an hour, watching the people come and go, watching my husband leave the gallery with that woman and her grown son. He looked proud. He looked like a man who had just attended his child's event. And in that moment, I realized I had been married to a man who had lived 2 lives, one with me, and one built on the secret he'd chosen to keep alive for 3 decades. Didn't confront him that night, not yet. Because I wanted him to lie to me one more time, to hear it from his own lips before I decided what kind of woman I would become next. That night, I waited for Daniel to come home. He walked through the door at 7:42 p.m. on the dot, as if punctuality could still save him. He looked calm, collected, even cheerful. "Hey, honey," he said, hanging up his coat. "How was your day?" For a split second, I almost answered like I always did. "Fine, how about yours?" But that would have been a lie, and I was done with those. Instead, I just smiled and said, "Busy." "You?" "Oh, the usual," he replied, grabbing a glass of water. "Meetings, grading, paperwork, you know how it is." Meetings, that word hung in the air like poison. I studied him the way a detective studies a suspect, every blink, every hesitation, every shallow breath. And I thought of Tom, of Sarah, of the dedication on that art gallery wall. "Daniel," I said softly, "can I ask you something?" He nodded, oblivious. "Of course." "Do you have any regrets?" He frowned. "Regrets?" "Yes." "About your past?" He chuckled, that light, dismissive laugh he used whenever a question got too close to the truth. Laura, everyone has regrets. I wish I'd invested earlier, maybe traveled more. Why? I tilted my head, pretending to think. Oh, I don't know, just wondering if there's anything you've been holding on to, something I should know. For a heartbeat, something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, maybe. But it passed quickly, replaced by that teacher's composure, the calm, reasonable expression of a man who always knew the answers. He took my hand and smiled. No secrets here, honey, you know me. No secrets here. The words hit me like a punch, because now I knew he wasn't just lying. He was comfortable lying. I wanted to scream, to throw the truth in his face, to show him the photograph, the voicemail, the dedication on the wall. But I didn't. Because I wanted something better, something that would make him face every truth he'd buried in front of the people who deserved to hear it. So I smiled instead. Good, I said quietly. That's all I needed to know? Later that night, while Daniel slept beside me, the man who had built a family on deception, I stared at the ceiling and made a plan. Not a cruel one, not even a loud one, just poetic. I pulled out my notebook, the same one I'd used to track down Sarah and Tom, and started writing. Every date, every voicemail, every clue. Then I called Sarah. She didn't sound surprised. She said, "He still hasn't told you, has he?" "No," I whispered. "Then it's time," she said softly. "You deserve to know everything, and so does he." We decided to meet, not in secret this time, but together, all of us. Because if Daniel wanted to live in two worlds, I would bring those worlds face to face. Next Sunday, my husband would walk into what he thought was just another family dinner, but it wouldn't be dinner. It would be Judgment Day. Sunday arrived like a storm pretending to be calm. The table was set, candles, flowers, and the same blue china Daniel's mother had given us for our wedding. To him, it would look like any other family dinner. But to me, it was the stage for a truth that had been waiting 30 years to be spoken. I told Daniel that our son, Michael, was coming over for dinner and that he was bringing a guest. Daniel didn't ask who. He never did. He'd gotten too comfortable trusting my predictability. By 6, everything was ready, the roast in the oven, wine glasses filled just enough to relax him. Every detail perfectly ordinary. Then the doorbell rang. Daniel looked up from his newspaper and said, "You get it, honey?" "Of course," I said, smoothing my dress. When I opened the door, I saw Sarah Green standing there, calm, poised, almost serene, and next to her was Tom. The young man from the art gallery, Daniel's son, the living proof of everything he'd buried beneath 3 decades of lies. "Come in," I whispered. They stepped inside, polite and uneasy, like guests who knew this wasn't a normal invitation. I guided them to the table, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it. Then I called out, "Danny, we're ready?" He came around the corner, still smiling, and froze. His face drained of color so fast I thought he might faint. "Laura," he whispered. What is this?" "Dinner," I said simply. "With family." For a few seconds, no one breathed. The only sound was the faint hum of the oven. Daniel's eyes darted between Sarah and me, then landed on Tom, those familiar gray-blue eyes staring back at him. I can explain," he stammered. I leaned forward, folding my hands neatly on the table. "Oh, please do." Sarah sat quietly, her expression composed but heavy. Tom looked hurt, not angry, just hollow. "Dad," he said softly, "you told me someday you'd make things right." The word "dad" hit the air like thunder. Michael, sitting silently at the far end of the table, looked from Daniel to me. "Dad," he repeated, his voice tight. "What does he mean, Dad?" Daniel's hands trembled. He couldn't even meet his own son's eyes. "I never meant for this to what?" I interrupted. "To come out, to destroy the fantasy you built. Because, Daniel, it's not the lie that kills a marriage, it's the years you spent rehearsing it." He dropped his head into his hands. "I thought I was protecting everyone." I laughed, a short, humorless sound. "No, you were protecting yourself." Tom spoke up then, voice shaking but firm. "I didn't come here to destroy anything. I just wanted to meet the part of my father's life he always kept hidden." For a long, unbearable moment, no one said a word. Then I stood, I walked to the sideboard, took out a small gift box and set it in front of Daniel. He looked at it warily. "What is this?" "Open it," I said. Inside was the photograph, the one I had found tucked away in that old book. Beside it, a note written in my handwriting: "You taught me that honesty is the foundation of family. Tonight you get to live up to your own lesson." He looked up at me, tears in his eyes. For the first time in 27 years, he had no words. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was truth, raw, cold, and cleansing. When the night finally ended, Daniel begged for forgiveness. But I wasn't ready to give it, not yet. Because I still had one final surprise for him, and this one would change everything. The house was quiet after everyone left, the kind of silence that hums with what's been said and what never will be again. The table still smelled of roasted meat and wine, but the air was different now, stripped clean, bare of illusion. Daniel sat in the living room, head in his hands, while I stood by the window, staring out at the dark yard that had once been our shared peace. "Laura," he said finally, his voice small, "please say something." I turned slowly, meeting the eyes of the man I had loved for nearly 3 decades. "How long," I asked, "did you think you could keep both worlds alive?" He didn't answer. Maybe he couldn't, so I answered for him. 30 years, I said softly. 30 years you've been dividing holidays, birthdays, promises like slices of cake. He looked up, tears streaking his face. I was young, scared. "I didn't want to lose you." I shook my head. "You didn't lose me, Daniel. You gave me up without telling me. Every time you lied, every time you looked me in the eyes and said there was nothing to hide, that's when you let go." He tried to move closer. "Please, Laura, I never stopped loving you. Then you should have had the courage to love me honestly." The quiet stretched. He broke it first. "What happens now?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized that my revenge wasn't going to be screaming or throwing things or destroying what was left. That kind of rage burns fast and dies. I wanted something that lasted, something that would make him live with his choices. So I walked to the bookshelf and took out a folder. Inside were papers neatly typed, legally binding. I handed them to him. He glanced down. His face went pale. "These are ownership transfers," I said. "I've put my name on the house, my business, and the savings. Everything we built together will stay where it belongs, with the person who actually lived the life, not just acted in it." He blinked, stunned. "You're leaving me?" I smiled faintly. "No, Daniel, you left me 30 years ago. I'm just catching up." He started to cry, not loud sobs, just the quiet breaking of a man realizing his comfort had expired. "I'll make it right," he whispered. "I'll tell everyone, I'll fix it." "You can't fix truth," I said, "but you can live with it, and now so will they." He looked up, confused. "Who?" "Sarah, Tom. Everyone who deserves the truth." That morning, before the dinner, I had sent them copies of Daniel's written confession, the one he'd started months ago and never finished. He had told part of the truth to ease his guilt. I had completed it for him. It wasn't vengeance. It was record-keeping. No more secrets. No more pretending. A week later, I sat in my lawyer's office finalizing the paperwork. No shouting, no drama, just quiet closure. I didn't destroy Daniel, I exposed him, and in doing so, I freed myself. Tom stopped by once after that. He brought me a small clay sculpture, a tree, its branches twisted but strong. Mrs. Stevens, he said awkwardly, "I hope you don't mind, it's a thank you." I smiled, touched his hand gently. "You can call me Laura," I said. "And thank you for being brave enough to live honestly." He left, and I placed the sculpture on the windowsill, right where the light could find it every morning. That's how I rebuilt myself, piece by piece, day by day, in the light. Daniel moved out 2 weeks later. He writes sometimes long, apologetic letters. I read them, then I burn them. Because forgiveness isn't always about letting someone back in. Sometimes it's about walking out and realizing the silence that used to hurt now feels like peace. If you've ever loved someone who built a home on half-truths, remember this. The truth doesn't destroy you, it strips away everything that was never real. And what's left, that's where freedom begins. Thank you for listening. If this story touched your heart or made you think about what truth really costs, subscribe for more stories where karma speaks softly but powerfully. Because sometimes revenge doesn't need fire, it just needs truth.